I think good buildings, and particularly buildings that support education, ought to be about discovery. You ought to be able to not get it just by walking in the front door. There ought to be something that draws you in and draws you through.
It's just a nice place to be, whether it's a nice sunny day and the sun's coming in through the windows, or whether it's a rainy day and it brings the environment inside. It's still a really nice place to be every day.
Yeah, I totally agree. When we walked into the building for the first time, and we were all just so overwhelmed by the beauty of just the building and the furniture, that I think people felt a need to really create that space and make it their own, but put more effort into it than if it was just sort of a drab old brick building.
I think it absolutely feels cozy, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think kids feel that too, and I think the parents feel that when they're in here. It feels real inviting.
Probably one of the strongest things that drove the design was the desire to create a building like it belonged here, like it opened itself up to the outside and actually invited the island in.
I love the transition of spaces over the bridges, and I know when I've been coming through the building, they use this as a teaching environment as well.
Is that right?
So you'll see, sometimes you'll see kids gathered here,
that's cool.
and teachers and furniture, and you know, it lends itself to a flexible environment, which is what we wanted.
In our old building especially, it was definitely not as conducive to having, you know, small learning groups or flexible grouping or being able to use the space in a different way. It was really narrowly focused on what we could do. And here there are so many opportunities in all different content areas to use it in a lot of different ways.
I think when you have a traditional building with the one room, it forces you to treat kids as if they're one group of students all doing the same thing, because you don't have space to do much else. And in this type of setup, you're much more easily able to treat them as individuals and have them do individual types of things, or have them work with small groups who are working on the same concept, because there's the physical ability to do that.
What I really appreciate is the simplicity of the design. As we were thinking about how were we going to add the playfulness and certainly the color, I think the design has provided a canvas of which to work from.
We actually started thinking about color during the schematic design phase. I mean, I remember having the green floor in my office for months and months and months, and bringing in different kinds of chairs, different kinds of fabrics, different kinds of carpets. And we actually didn't end up with any carpet in this building. It's the first building that we did with no carpet. So it's just a nice, clean, clear color palette that I think still allows the island to come in, still allows the natural environment to come in, but also provides a little bit of fun.
I remember when we brought the color scheme to the staff, because we were on the planning committee together, and we showed everyone the green floor and the orange, that at first some people weren't even sure if it was for real or if it was a joke, because it looked so green and so orange, but it works. It really does. Tamela knows what she's doing.
One of the things you did here, Tamela, that actually supported personalization is you worked to get those tiles manufactured for the bathrooms that actually were student artwork, right?
Right. Well, Jill, who is just an extraordinary art teacher, had these wonderful tiles that students had. They actually were artwork, not tiles, but she was doing a Matisse study, and I saw them in her room and said, that's exactly what we need. And ironically, many of the colors that are in the building came from that tile design.
When we saw the orange chairs, we were all a little wondering how that would be, and it totally fits. And the kids love them. I remember in our old building, I would have the little girls in my class would get their little skirts and stuff stuck in the cracks in the chairs because they were so old. And I'd say, oh, honey, it's okay. We're going to be getting a new building with new chairs. And now I think that it just is so wonderful how they can sit. They can get a little bit of rock in them, but it's, you know, they have that give in them so they can rock back and forth, but it's just such a nice learning environment for them to be able to sit and use that in a way that makes sense.
I love how the chairs are designed so that they almost have to sit up straight. Yeah. They can slump, but it's not comfortable to slump in those chairs. It really forces them to have to sit up straight. That's not a bad thing for little kids as they're growing up.
No.
What I really appreciated was we had a very standard idea in our head of what furniture was. We didn't even know the possibilities of what was out there that could change a space into being really flexible. And it is really flexible.
I don't care how old you are, all of us are in some ways kinesthetic learners. We need to move and we need to have variety. And one of the things you did here beautifully, I think, is you selected furniture that accommodated a variety of different choices, you know, whether it's in the soft cubes that you got out in the shared learning, or the different styles of chairs as you move from the classrooms to conference rooms to the library. I think it's just, it supports that kinesthetic need that we all have for variety. And I think it makes for an effective teaching and learning environment.
You know what one of my favorite parts is? When we have kiddos in the library, and we have those wonderful round stools of different sizes, and they can lay on them, which they do, and sit on them. The library has a number of different environments created from the furnishings.
It's a really funny story. We were out here with a photographer one day photographing, and it was recess time, and so kids started to come out of the building here and come down the hillside, and there were some kids that were actually going down the stairs, which is how I would like them to behave. But then there were also kids that came over on the grass and started rolling down the hill. And you know, I had to just sort of release my expectation and say, hey, you know, maybe the building supports different kinds of choice, which I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, don't you feel like one of our challenges sometimes is when our work is done, and then I come back into the building, and when I see how the building is evolving into an educational facility, and you know, many of the thoughts that we had are certainly being embraced and enhanced, but I also see such a variety. And I think when we provide something that is flexible, then the individuality of the teacher is allowed to shine, and the individuality of the students, yes.
That's good. I mean, that's what makes it feel like it's their place. You know, the hardest thing that we have to do as architects is let go of the building.